You are listening to The Michael Lodge Show. Wealth, business, and taxes. Oh yeah, and some politics. Let's get started.
And hello. Welcome to the Michael Lodge Show. This is Michael. I tell you, I haven't been on a podcast for quite some time. I've kind of just been taking it easy, trying to get stuff done, trying to respond to clients' needs at the moment. And so I started, normally I do my podcast early in the morning, but I decided to get up and work early in the morning and get some of this stuff done and off my desk and onto other people's desks and then over to my client's desk. But I tell you, it's been, here in South Florida, we have had literally hardly any rain. And I'm beginning to see some of the effects of it because some of the grasses are starting to turn brown now. And the lawn on mine is the weeds that I used to call grass. It's gone. And now I've just got black sandy stuff sitting there. So we've had a little bit of a problem in the rain section, which we do need. We need rain here. I will never complain about rain, but we do need it now because of the trees and the brush and the geckos and everything else needs some rain. We need some wetness. Listen, one of the things that has really been bothering me, and I know that some of you probably get tired of me talking about it all the time, but you see, when things happen in Washington, D.C., it affects you and me. It affects how we spend our money. It affects how we live. It affects how we start budgeting our personal finances. And when individuals in government begin making innuendos and everything else on higher taxes and higher capital gains taxes, personal taxes, corporate taxes, and more red tape from the government, well, that trickles, well, not just trickles, it flows down to you and I. I was looking at a analysis that a news program did, and they were comparing wood costs from a year ago. So they went to April of 2020. So what they did is they started to look at how much it would cost to build a deck. And this was a 200 square foot deck using 2,400 board feet to build this deck. Now, in 2020, the cost to build that deck was $936. Now, between then and now, and mostly from January until now, the board prices have gone up because of inflation and mandatory red tape and government rules and regulations. Today, 2021, to build that same deck, it went from $936 to $3,696. That is inflation because of government activity. And when the government gets involved, you see the costs for the American people go up. The cost to build a home goes up. The cost to build anything now, if it's wood involved, so that means furniture goes up, everything goes up. To build a home, it goes up tremendously because of government regulations and controls and environmental issues that they want to have control over, taxation, everything goes up. Manpower goes up. The cost of manpower goes up because of government intervention. So if you want to buy a house now, it's going to be 4 times as much because wood prices have gone up. The cost to obtain that lumber has gone up because of government intervention. So tonight, you guys, I'm not going to, but a lot of you guys are going to listen to Joe Biden's State of the Union. Now, I want you to understand one thing. That is a divided house that he's speaking to. You have one side of the house who wants to spend more money. They want to spend and spend, print more money. When you print more money, the inflationary rate goes up. They want to tax. So when you tax, everything goes up. And that's going to be the whole message of Biden's speech to the nation, is that he needs more money. He needs more money. To be able to spend on infrastructure, he needs more money. The problem, you see, is that they always talking about needs. They need, but they never talk about where can they cut. Where can they cut the cost of government to pay for a lot of these different things? So taxes keep going up. The taxes on our wages are going up. I can guarantee you it's going to go up. You see, the problem with Washington, D.C. is that they think that when they think they need more money, they immediately go to the printing press and they begin printing more money. Worst thing in the book. When they think they need more money, they begin to tax and tax heavily. Capital gains tax is going up to 43%. That means anything that you have built, anything that you have saved up for your children, anything that you have invested for down the road when you retire, when you sell it off, when you get rid of it, you are going to be taxed at 43%. Capital gains tax. That's why I'm hearing from so many different individuals throughout the United States that are telling me that they are leaving the United States and moving their money to places where they will be taxed more favorably. Now, see, the IRS is just about ready to get more power because Joe Biden wants to raise $80 billion to fund them so that they have more power over the rich. They want to attack the rich. Those individuals who have built companies that have created jobs for you. Those individuals who have worked so hard to build wealth so that they can give it to their family members when they pass away. You see, all of these individuals did something. They worked hard. They did something, they built something, they invented something, they created something, they worked the hardest that they could to do something, to build something. And now the government wants half of it. And if you are in California and if you are in New York, that is even going to be even greater expense. So when you listen to the president's message tonight, remember, this is not for the good of the country. Everything that he is doing is not for the good of the country. It is for the power base that he needs to build for his political party and for his political agenda. It has nothing to do with roads, because if you look at that infrastructure bill, tiny bit of it goes to roads and bridges and everything else that is considered infrastructure. You see, the Congress has deemed a different terminology on what infrastructure is, and they have put everything in there, including the kitchen sink and the old laundry that's broken down the street. I mean, they have put everything in there. So what they are doing when he talks about these numbers, these huge numbers, that they are just about ready to spend, remember, it does nothing for the American people, but it does everything for their political party and to gain power. Their bill, H1, does more to give the one side of the House more power and to stay in office longer You see, you and I, we are being faced with inflation at the moment. And we've all seen it. We've seen our gas prices go zooming up. Food prices go zooming up. Taxes have gone up. And we're getting hit by costs from every side because, you see, when there's higher taxes and when there's higher costs of doing business in the United States, the company that's selling you that product has to pass it on to you. That expense, that added more expense, has to be passed on to you because they've got stockholders that are requiring them to make money. And they can't just sit there and just take in more taxes and just pay it without passing it on and making their stockholders money, because people have invested in your 401ks, have invested in these companies. So we are being faced with a White House and a Congress and a president who only wants to spend more money but do nothing for the American people. And we are in trouble. And that's why I have been preaching and preaching to every single one of you to start putting money away. If you got a refund, put it away, because there is going to be not just a rainy day, but there is going to be a storm, because we have been hit by inflation and numbers are going up and up and up. Throughout the remainder of this year and into 2022, we are going to see more inflation. That's why it's so very important that the House and the Senate be controlled by the Republicans at the moment. And I only say that is because you have got to stop a president and a way of thinking that is tax and spend. You've got to stop that. And Congress and the Senate have got to look at better ways of how to manage the government, because we are spending way too much. Our debt is way too much. Every time that they talk about spending, they've got to do two things. One, they've got to go out and borrow more money to pay for it, because they don't have enough tax dollars rolling in. And then they have to raise taxes, which never cover the amount of money that they're spending. The trillions and trillions of dollars that we have spent, that we have sent out to the American people, that we have spent on nonsense, has not done anything for the American people. Instead, it's to put in place more regulations, more hardships for the American people, because inflation is going up and it's costing Americans more. Wages are not going up because now companies are beginning to realize that this is a White House and a president and a Congress that only want to attack their business. So they can't do any more wage increases because they do not know what this president is going to do. So we need a check and balance at the moment. We have got to have a party in place that is going to fight spending. We cannot go on like this, people. We are in a situation where they are taking more loans out and more loans out. And unfortunately with them, they can't forgive those loans. And they want to be able to forgive student loans with a stroke of a pen. They want to forgive this debt that these individuals have chosen to take on. They chose to create debt for themselves in order to go to school. That was their choice. It wasn't my choice for them. It wasn't your choice. You as taxpayers. And now we have to write off those billions of dollars of student loan debt that these individuals signed up for. And now they want a free ride. And the Democrats want to give it to them. This is not a plan, an economic plan that works ever. forgiving debt to individuals who signed up to go to school, to forgive that debt, is the wrong message to send to the American people and to future students. I will raise my educational debt as much as I possibly can because I know the government's going to write it off at some point in time. I am so frustrated at the moment because I'm seeing all of this happen. That's why I tell you, I've turned off the news, I've turned off the White House, I've turned off all these individuals who keep spouting lies. And listen, my friends, that's what it is. It's lies. And the lies are getting bigger and more expensive and more dangerous to this nation. You see, individuals, there's a lot of individuals, especially in the Democratic Party, who wants to go to a socialist form of government. Even though that they have seen other countries fail from socialism, they still have this belief in this love and this desire that everybody should be on equal playing fields. Everybody should be making the same amount. Everybody should be going to school free. Everybody should have free medical care. Everybody should. The problem with free is that it's not free. It costs each and every single one of us. There is no way that you can become a socialist country and become a financially solvent country. There's no way to do it. There's no industries out there. In fact, I heard a statement from Maxine Waters the other day that she said her goal is to take over U.S. companies and that the companies will have to report in to the government. And I'm sitting here. Here is an individual who is supposed to be representing the freedoms and the ability to create companies and businesses and jobs and everything. And she wants to take that away and let the government be in control. Honestly, ask your question. Does that make any sense to you? If you look at the socialist countries, which one of them have become wealthy? Which one of them have been able to provide for their individuals, for their citizens? Ask yourself that question. But before you answer that question, you better go out and research, because if you're going to point to Norway and Sweden and all these other countries, you've got to realize that those countries are capitalists. They're not socialists. They may have some socialist programs that they might be running just like we do, but they're not full-bred socialists like Venezuela, Cuba, countries like that. Countries who have failed their people. Cuba, a communist socialist country, where their people are literally having to steal from farmers in order to be able to eat. That's failure. Where you've got individuals in Venezuela where they literally have no food to eat. They are literally living from whatever piece of meat that they can find in the garbage. I hate to tell you this, that is not what America's about. And now the government wants to send money down into these countries where we have been spending money for years. Billions and trillions of dollars have gone to these countries. And they're still the same way. People are still trying to escape from them. People are still hungry. People still do not have the medical care, the quality of medical care that they need. And the government of the United States has been pumping money into these countries, and some of these countries don't even like us. Let me tell you what happens in third world countries when you give them money. The politicians grab into those money bags and they start taking the money out for their own personal self. I've seen it happen. Listen, if you've ever traveled to third world countries, and if you've ever really delved into some of these countries, you will find that corruption is deep inside every single government entity that's in that country. From the tax collector to the environmental company to a department to the walls to the investment side, it's all corrupt. And it remains corrupt to this day. Even though we have pumped billions of dollars into these countries, they are still the same. They have not changed one bit. Third world countries do not change because corruption is rampant within them. I've been in these countries. I have worked in these countries. I have owned companies in these countries. And I know what I'm talking about. Corruption is rampant. But yet we keep sending money down there just so that we can be friends with these countries. But we put no rules and regulations on how this money can be spent. We have no auditors going down there and looking to see how our money is being spent. No, we just throw the money at these countries and we do nothing to make sure that the money's getting into the people's hands. So when the president talks about giving money to these countries in South America or even into Mexico, if he talks about that tonight, remember that money that he's talking about is going to waste. I remember, I forget what the world organization, I was in the Philippines at that time. And the World Bank said that they were not going to give any more loans to the Philippines because they were so corrupt. The money that was going into that government was being siphoned off by politicians. And so you see that over and over and over again. I was really surprised that the World Bank would have the guts to say that, but they did. They cut them off. And that's the same that we need to do too. If we are going to spend money, then we have to have rules and regulations that they have to live up to. Otherwise, no money should ever be sent to a third world country that does not provide a program that reaches out to the citizens of that country and provides them with what the money was originally supposed to be used for. But it will never happen. I'm telling you. In these countries, corruption is so rampant that it will never happen. It is so difficult to clean up a country. You just can't do it. It's still done. It's still behind the curtain when no one can see it. Gosh, I remember one time there was a Filipino senator in the Philippines who had created all of these road building projects and everything else, but the money was never going into the project. It was going into the construction company, and then the construction company sent the money offshore. It's done all the time. Whatever money is going into a country goes into the pockets of the politicians that are there. And if you allow the President of the United States and the State Department to distribute billions of dollars to these countries without any retribution of misspending or fraud, then we're stupid. How much has gone into the pot? I mean, listen, there are individuals from these third world countries who have very nice homes in Beverly Hills. They have brand new cars, brand new BMWs inside their garages of these homes in Beverly Hills. And some of them don't just own one or two or three. They own a lot. They don't invest their money back into the country because they don't want people to know that they have that money. So they put it offshore. I have been around this too long and I've seen so much. When you do jobs, if you're trying to do work in these third world countries, especially the Philippines, If you want to get anything done, you have to pay under the table. If you want to set up a corporation in the Philippines, you have to pay under the table to the SEC people trying to get the work done. If you want something done in the Bureau of Taxation in some of these countries, you just pay the tax man a few bucks and your problem will go away. Corruption is rampant. Ethics is not there. And so we are literally sending our U.S. tax dollars into some of these countries where there is no ethics of any kind, and the politician rules with his hand out and takes the money. But yet we keep doing it because we believe that when we send money to anybody that they're going to listen to what the United States said. Nah, doesn't work. It hasn't worked. That's why Trump stopped it. Because it was not working. Unless you identify a specific need of those people and you have someone there who is spending the money and making sure that the work is getting done, that's the only way you can do it. But we don't do that. We just send the money down to these countries and then it's gone. So, listen, when you hear about tax and spend and tax and more spend, taking out more money in debt to cover all of these things that government wants to spend in our own country, you have got to realize that there's fraud going on there too. Because they're not telling the American people on how that money is being spent. A good example, fuel taxes. What is the fuel taxes that we pay? Why is it not paying for the roads and stuff? No one ever seems to want to audit that department for some reason and tell us what the real results are. Billions of dollars are taken out. When you go to the pump and you pay for your gas, you're paying for a federal fuel tax and you're paying for a state fuel tax. But no one ever says, let's audit that and see exactly how well they're spending that money. Now, we have heard about these bridges to nowhere, and that's true. They have. Through that money, they have built some bridges to nowhere, and it's just sitting to this day just out in the air, going nowhere. But they spent millions to build that. So the American people have got to become very aggressive now. I'm going to use a term that Maxine Waters likes to use, right? But we're going to have to do it towards politicians because we have got to be more demanding to know how this money is being spent. Before you take out another loan, tell me how you've spent that money in that department to benefit the American people. How have you spent that money? Well, the biggest problem that government has is that they have really good retirement programs. When an individual leaves government, he's making some good buck. And sometimes even more than what he was making when he was actually trying to do his job. But that is the biggest problem, is that these pensions are so high at the moment, into the billions and trillions of dollars. And each and every single one of us are paying for that. So before we take out any more debt, before we add on any more taxes, we have got to understand how these tax dollars are being used and spent. And we've got to demand that from the members of Congress and the members of the United States Senate. Tell us how that money is being spent. Don't let them just go out and get more loans or print more money and stuff. Tell us how they are currently using the money from our tax funds that we send them every single day. See, I don't think that we as Americans, we hold them accountable for anything. And that is the problem. We as Americans have got to hold members of the Congress, members of the United States Senate, members of any type of government agency, and even the individuals within the White House, we have got to hold them accountable on how they are spending our money. We just cannot keep raising the debt. We just cannot keep taking on more loans. We just can't be taxing more if you're not paying attention as to how the money is being spent currently. How much of it has been wasted on programs and other issues that they spend money on, or they give money out, especially these grant programs. We've got to take a very careful look at the grant program because so much is being spent on stupidity. So, we have the responsibility that if the president says spend, we ask, how is it being spent now? How is our tax money being spent now? When he says tax, no, we're not going to tax yet until you tell us how much and how you're using the sources of funds. What are you using it for? Before we tax and before we take a debt out again, you had better show us how it's going to help the American people, not to help a political party. I don't want that. I don't want to hear about that. I want to know how that money you're collecting, how is it going to help to create better roads? How is it going to fix our bridges? How is it going to fix so many different things that is broken in the United States? How are we going to fix that? Have we looked at our air traffic control situation? Are we up to date? Is our programs, is our software up to date? Is our satellite systems up to date? Or are we still operating off of 1970 satellites? I don't know, because no one tells me how our tax dollars are being spent. We just keep adding more to it. We just keep putting more money into the pot. But we don't know how it's being spent. Listen, in our own households, let's think about this. In our own households, if we know that we only have $4,000 coming in a month to take care of our rent, utilities, our car payments, our children's education, and we know that we've gotten so close to that $4,000, we can't spend any more. Because we already know what we've spent our money on, because those were the essentials to keep us living as a family or as a person on a daily basis. We know what our regulations are on our spending. If we go over that, what happens to us? We become a debt-ridden person that can't move any further in life because he's working so hard to pay off his debt. And that is what the United States government is requiring of every single American, to work harder and give more. Work harder and give more. You can't be able to save anything because we're going to hit it with capital gains. You can't give anything to your children because we're going to hit it with a 50% capital gains tax. You cannot do anything because we are going to tax you on every single thing that you do. So understand my frustration. Listen, I'm a trained accountant. And I look at these numbers. And you don't add debt to a company. You don't. Because you've got the responsibility to the stockholders to make them money. You find a different way to pay for whatever expense that you need to pay for. But you don't go out and create debt. But the government doesn't believe in that because they know that they've got you by the neck. And they're wringing it as much as they're tightening it as much as they possibly can, because they know that you've got tax money that they want, that they can spend, that they can waste. And we as Americans, we don't hold them accountable. I often think that there needs to be a citizens committee, a panel that hears from the government on how they're spending their money. And they have to report in to those members of citizens. And this panel asked the questions, not based on politics, but based purely on cost and effect. Income in, money out. That's all that we want to know. And we should be able to ask those individuals of those committees, those chairmen of those committees, why did they do that when they did this? But what? Congress puts a fence up around the Capitol so that no American can get in to talk to their congressmen. So the members of Congress are locked up, secure from the American people, and that has got to stop. That's it for today. Listen, I'm not listening to tonight's speech because it's just going to be the same old of tax and spend and more debt and more lies. And I'm tired of being lied to. And I'm tired of hearing the same old thing on COVID. When the government literally shut us down and shut down our businesses and made people lose their employment. And then turned it around with paying them so much in unemployment that now people don't want to go back to work. This is a stupid country that we have at the moment. We've got stupid leaders from the White House into the Congress, into the Senate. We have stupid leaders. And we keep falling for it. We keep falling for it. Listen, if you like the content that I provide, go to www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge. Again, that's www.buymeacoffee.com/Michael Lodge. If you have questions, send me a question or send me a comment. You can send it to me via text at 818-252-5682. That goes into a big database that's here in the office. I get to review them and comment back to them. Now, remember, it's not coming to my cell phone, okay? It's coming to a database that's inside the computer, and I get to answer them. So don't hesitate on sending me a question or a comment. Again, that's 818-252-5682. I want everybody to go out and have a great day. We're only 2 more days until Saturday. And that's good because we need the rest, right? I mean, during the week, don't you feel like you're exhausted? During the week, I feel as though that I've dealt with so many different issues and problems and concerns that I need that time just to recoup, to rest, to get my mind off of things. Listen, if you are having a dispute within your company or within your business or within your family, maybe it's a marital dispute, maybe it is a situation where you're going through a divorce or separation and you need a parenting plan put in place. Listen, you need to call my office. My phone number at my office is 305-824-2963. Make an appointment. I provide a 30-minute free consultation on mediation, and let's see whether or not if your case would be an issue for mediation, and we'll work it from there. Mediation works. It has an 85% result rate of getting something done. So if you have a dispute, if you have a conflict, mediate it. This is Mike Lodge. I'll talk with you very soon. Bye-bye. This podcast has been produced by Michael Lodge, fully focused on content.